So I just finished watching Elfen Lied, and it was pretty bad. Released in 2004 by Studio Arms, Elfen Lied is a show that's given quite an infamous reputation for its excessive use of violence and over-the-top gore. I remember first watching this show 5 years ago, back when I was 14, and I really enjoyed what I saw. So recently when a friend told me to watch the show and make a video about it, I was quite confused because I remember the show being pretty good, but I decided to cave in and watch it anyway. And I'm sorry to say that Elfen Lied really doesn't hold up. It's an absolute mess of a show and can only be summarized as, I'm 14 and this is deep. Elfen Lied was based on a manga by the same name, written by Okamoto, and I think it's worth noting that while the anime was still being released, the manga still hadn't finished yet, so the anime has a completely different ending. But with that being said, let's skip to the main meat and potatoes, the plot. Skip to this part in the video if you don't want to be spoiled. The show opens up to a mysterious naked girl going on a killing spree in what seems to be some sort of laboratory. We then learn that her name is Lucy, a special kind of human with powers, and if let to escape, she could pose a threat to all of humanity. Because anime, she ends up escaping, but not unscathed. She falls into the ocean after taking a bullet to her head, causing the loss of her memories. She washes up on the beach and is discovered by our main character, Kota and his cousin. Kota has just arrived back onto the island after many years, and it's the first time he's been back since his family was murdered by an unknown assailant. Kota finds Lucy in a near catatonic state, and she has basically reverted back to the mind of a toddler, so he decides to do the most responsible thing he can do when he finds a naked helpless girl on the beach. Instead of taking her to the police, he takes her home and calls her new, which I think highlights one of the biggest problems of the show. People don't act like people. I understand that I'm watching anime, but still, why would he take her home? And later on in the show, when the police are looking for her, why would he lie and say that he's never seen her before? There is no reason for him to lie, it just feels like he did it for plot convenience. So while New is with Kota, the military organizes a plan to recapture her. So you'd think, since she's a massive threat that could pose a danger to all of Earth, that they would send some type of extreme force. Well, no, they just send one team. If she posed such a massive threat to humanity, like the show has constantly said multiple times, then why wouldn't they send an entire army in? Why wouldn't they quarantine the entire area the instant they know where she is? We know they're able to because they do it in the last 2 episodes, but nope, just not now I guess. It just makes no sense at all. So the team are able to track down New, and they get it to turn back into Lucy, causing them all to get killed. After this fight, New turns back into Lucy and basically becomes her alter ego. But now I'm going to stop talking about the plot and talk about the other aspects of the show. Looking back on Elfen Lied's plot, one thing comes to mind: rushed. Maybe it was the anime original ending, but the show just felt really rushed and felt like it would have been more suited to a 24 episode show rather than its 13. And it's not just me who thinks that too. The director of the show even said as much in an interview. Quote, "Director Kanbei Momoru expressed his disappointment in having to condense a story into 13 episodes and felt like it needed more to include the significant plot details that would have made the series more emotive. It would be a crime to talk about Elfen Lied without talking about the studio who made it. Like I said earlier, Elfen Lied was produced by Studio Arms, which I think played a key role in how the show turned out. For the people who don't know, before producing Elfen Lied, Studio Arms used to make adult animation, or as you might know it, hentai. To my knowledge, Elfen Lied was Studio Arms' first feature-length anime, and you can really tell. Throughout the show there are all these awkward fan service moments which feel like they don't really fit into the show, and to be honest just made me feel uncomfortable. In particular the scenes of New. Like I said before, New is Lucy's alter ego and basically has the mind of a toddler, and she has a lot of fan service scenes which just came off as creepy and uncomfortable. Now a lot of people who like Elfen Lied sell it as a sort of mature anime, an anime that's made for an older audience. This isn't your granddad's anime, which just isn't true. It's no surprise that I really liked Elfen Lied back when I was 14, because Elfen Lied very much comes off as a show made for 14-year-olds. The gore in the show is one of its main selling points, and it's what everyone talks about, but to be honest, the gore was the worst part of the show. Simply put, it's gore for gore's sake. There is no deeper meaning behind it, and it's only used to shock the audience. And although when I first saw it, it succeeded at this, later on it just started to feel cringe and honestly reminded me of some of the Saw movies. This even affects the way most characters are written too. Most characters lack any sort of depth and personality, and feel like the only reason they were written into the show was for the purpose of being killed off later. After rewatching the show and finding all this out, I was very surprised when I checked Mal to find out that the show was rated 7.5 out of 10, with most of the reviews and conversations about the show being very positive towards it, with the top review on Mal even going so far as to say, "All in all, Elfen Lied is an anime that does a very audacious thing, so much cruelty, gore and nudity in one series, but the end result is a masterpiece." Although there were some people who didn't like the show, they seem to be the minority, and it's not what the larger audience thinks. Elfen Lied is a show that feels like it doesn't know what it wants to be. 50% of the time it's this over-the-top show with lots of violence and gore, and the other 50% of the time it's this romance harem anime, and it doesn't mix these two very well. It feels like it's trying to have some deeper meaning about racism and what it means to be human, but in the end it just feels like an edgy mess that doesn't really say anything at all. And for that reason I'm going to rate Elfen Lied a 3 out of 10. Thank you.